Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about Rahu and Ketu placed throughout your chart, in your natal chart, what it means for you. This is so important. Rahu and Ketu are our destiny. It's what we're here to learn. It's why we're here. And whatever signs and what houses it's in tells us so much about what we're here to learn in this lifetime, who we are, what we brought from our past lifetimes. You see, Rahu is our future and Ketu is our past. I would never think to go through the process of isolating one without the other because they are dynamically connected. Rahu is the north node of the moon and Ketu is the south node of the moon. And Rahu, being the north node of the moon, it's what brings us into this world. Ketu is actually what takes us out of this world. And if you understand the astronomy of what Rahu and Ketu are, they're not planets. They're points in space where the moon, that's why we call them the nodes of the moon, intersects the ecliptic, which is simply the path of the sun around. So where the moon hits the ecliptic going upward, that's Rahu. Then exactly opposite is Ketu, where the moon hits the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun, going downward. So you see, Rahu takes us in, Ketu takes us out of life. But what's so interesting about the nodes is they're always exactly in a chart, always exactly by degree and minute, opposite. So it's not like you're unusual that you have Rahu and Ketu the same degree, opposite signs. Everyone's going to have them opposite, same degree. So what do they really mean? You know, I got to point this out. I wrote a book a while back. They're so important. I wrote about Rahu and Ketu, our karmic destiny, because that's what it is. I take you through all the different placements of Rahu and Ketu and even how they depict world cycles and ages. It takes 18.5 years for Rahu and Ketu to go through all 12 signs and return. And think about what happens in life when you're 18 to 18.5 years old. You leave home, I mean, your whole life changes. You go away to school or you leave home, something big happens. And that's the power of Rahu and Ketu, our destiny. They create the biggest changes. Anyone that's been through Rahu's Mahadasha knows the minute they go into Rahu for that first 3 years, your whole life changes, everything. This is the power of Rahu and Ketu. So I thought I might cover when you have one in the first, you're going to have the other in the opposing house. And these houses are really interconnected in many ways. The first house is you, the seventh house is your marriage partner, the second house is your money, the eighth house is other people's money, the third house is lower education and learning, the ninth house is higher education and learning. So you see, one has a personal earlier effect and the other has a higher, more public effect. The fourth house is your home where you get away from the world, but the 10th house is the public, when you're in the public eye. The fifth house is your children, whereas the 11th house is our friends and humanity, the world's children. The 6th house and the 12th house both deal with health and healing and service to others. So the horoscope is so beautifully put together. And another book that I want to point out, I've got actually 10 books now on Amazon. Check it out. But the Divine Order of the Universe, I love because it goes through all these planets in the houses. And don't forget, this is my textbook for my university, Eastern Astrology for Western Minds. And I want to add before I begin, I'm starting a new first semester for the University of Vedic Astrology in January. If you've always wanted to learn Vedic astrology, here's your time, opportunity. Make 2021 that year that you become a Vedic astrologer. I have a certification course and it is stellar. You will meet so many interesting people through our community. And one more thing, don't forget my jewelry line. I'm selling malas and earrings, beautiful things to help enhance your spirituality. Go to my website, galacticcenter.org, and see what appeals to you in my jewelry line, and go to my university website to sign up for the university at universityofvedicastrology.com. So Rahu being in the first house and Ketu being in the 12th house. The first house, it would make you bigger than life with Rahu there. You've got a big personality. Your presence is big. You're powerful. But you have Ketu in the 7th. What is that? That means that there's going to be some issues in relationships. Wherever Rahu and Ketu are, Ketu's your past. What karmas you brought in from past lives to learn through. Ketu in the 7th house, you wanted to learn through relationships. And you tend to attract those that always need your help. Because wherever Ketu is, remember, is where you feel like there's an emptiness, a void, where something never feels whole and complete. And with Ketu being in your 7th house, you get these partners that drain all your energy. They always need your help, and you feel so good because you can help them. But heaven forbid, they're going to drain all your energy, because most of the time they act like they really want to be helped, but they never change. Gets old. You feel like they're a victim. They're draining all of your energy. And you're such a powerful person with Rahu in the first house. And by the way, the closer Rahu is to your ascendant, you're going to find that in your life, this is so true, you feel like your life has a destiny all its own. It's like you may make plans to go a certain direction, but the universe takes you elsewhere. Because you do have a life of destiny and purpose with Rahu on your ascendant. Okay? Let's talk about if you have Rahu. Now let's reverse that. Let's do this where we reverse them. So if you have Ketu in the first house and Rahu in the 7th house, yes, it's going to be all about relationships again. With Rahu in the 7th house, you have a partner that is over-consuming. They're bigger than life. And you know what? Sometimes Rahu deals with addictions. So they could be bigger than life and have some major addictions. Not always, but it is sometimes a possibility. Rahu, even in the first house, could cause you to have addictions in a certain way. Things that you just are so attached to. Because remember, Rahu is the materialistic world and a love of it, whereas Ketu is the spiritual world and letting go of the materialistic world. It's our spirituality. But when you put Ketu on the ascendant and Rahu in the 7th house, the partner is the center of attention a lot of times. They take a lot of energy, and it's not an easy relationship. Ketu in the first house, you never feel like you fit into the world. You always feel a bit disconnected and alienated in the world. You never feel like you fit in. And Ketu being in the first house, sometimes you can be very, very thin. And especially when you're a kid, you may get made fun of because you can't put on weight. Eventually, as we get older, it all catches up. But still, it gives a very slender appearance. If you have Rahu in the 2nd house and Ketu in the 8th house, well, Rahu in the 2nd house will give the ability to make money, to be wealthy, to be secure financially, but it didn't come easy because early childhood experiences are a bit stressed because Rahu is a malefic. Ketu being in the 8th house will make you very intuitive, psychic, deep and profound. But at the same time, money that is due to you through inheritances or through others may not come as you expect and can cause some disappointment, especially later in life, because the 8th house deals with money through other people. But Rahu in the 2nd house, it's fine. You're able to provide and make your own money and security with it being there. You feel very strong about your sense of self and self-confidence. Now let's switch that around. What if you had Ketu in the 2nd house and Rahu in the 8th house? Well, Rahu in the 8th house will give you that inheritance that you feel is due to you. You will have gains through others financially, even through your marriage partner. But Ketu being in the 2nd house caused some upsets and problems early on in childhood. Maybe the parents split or they weren't together, couldn't get along. There were some issues growing up. And when it comes to money, you have some issues with money. You feel like you can't hold on to it because what is Ketu? You never feel like you have enough. You could be a multi-millionaire, but you never feel like it's enough, because where Ketu is where you feel like something is always missing. There's not enough. There's a void. It's not whole or complete. And that would also reflect in your voice, what you have to say. You feel like you never can get the words out properly or say what you want to say, with Ketu being in the 2nd house. Let's go to the 3rd and the 9th. What if you had Rahu in the 3rd and Ketu in the 9th? Ketu in the 9th, trust me, you're never going to feel like you had the relationship you wanted with your father. It's like there's an emptiness. It's not whole and complete. Maybe you never knew your father. That's possible. Otherwise, they work all the time. They're never giving you the attention that you feel like you wanted or need. Rahu being in the 3rd house, you could be the youngest one in your family. Or there's some kind of issues or problems with the younger sibling. There's separation. Maybe it's in age. Maybe you're the youngest one and you've got a sibling that's 15 years older. There's just not a true connection. But Rahu being in the 3rd house, you will love to learn. You're always questing after something to learn more. And in the 3rd house, you can be very bright and possibly even a performer or entertainer. But the 3rd house also deals with the internet many times. And you're very good with social media. You're very good with writing. You're very, very good when it comes to dealing with computers and technology. So also Ketu being in the 9th house, wherever Ketu is, remember, it's like where you feel like you don't get enough of something. It's like you want more and more and more because you're trying to fill that emptiness of that void. So when it's in the 9th house, guess what? You never feel like you get enough spirituality. Learning, going to school, you're a perpetual student, always learning more and more and more. That's going to be Ketu in the 9th house. And a love of travel. You can't get enough of it. So if you have Ketu in the 3rd and Rahu in the 9th, Ketu in the 3rd is going to be this ferocious reading and learning. You can't get enough of it. And probably there's a disconnect to siblings with the 3rd house there. Plus Rahu being in the 9th house, you have a father that's bigger than life, that's over the top, an extremist in some way. Yes. And he could have addictions with it being there. There's like this addictive quality to the father. And he could be very successful too. Rahu does deal with material rewards and success. Okay. So if you have, let's go to the 4th and the 10th house. If you have Rahu in the 4th and Ketu in the 10th, the 4th house is your home and family. There's like a disconnect with the mother when Rahu is in the 4th. And there's a disconnect with family. But probably there's some really great gains in real estate and property. But with Ketu being in the 10th house, This means a very odd and unusual career. And many times it can mean you change careers a lot or jobs a lot. But it can mean like a career where an astrologer. I actually have Ketu in my 10th house from the moon. So this is definitely not the norm of a traditional conservative job to be an astrologer, right? That's what Ketu in the 10th will mean, an unusual career or job. Or there's many changes that occur within the workplace. Let's switch it around. Let's put Rahu in the 10th and Ketu in the 4th. Rahu in the 10th will mean this major expansion towards your work and success. Remember, Rahu is worldly, so there's this worldly success and expansive. Whereas with Ketu being in the 4th house, this can be where you never feel like you're at home. You're constantly having to move, and you always feel out of sorts or just not ever in the right place. Your home never feels like you're in the right place. And there's just a very difficult sense with the mother, or either losses around the mother. Maybe the mother was sick a lot, or there were problems, or just never there. Maybe you were separated from your mother at one point in time. That could be it as well. So now let's go to the 5th and the 11th. When we go to the 5th and the 11th, the 5th house, let's say Rahu's in the 5th and Ketu's in the 11th. Rahu in the 5th house can cause some difficulties getting pregnant. I'll have to say that if you're wanting children. And there can be some separation with you and your children at some point. And many times that could be just something dealing with divorce or something like that. Now, I don't want to scare people, but it just means at some point, and maybe your children, they go away to school far away or things like that. There's something about a separation at some point with your kids. Rahu in the 5th house can mean some extraordinarily intelligent children, very unique and talented in many, many ways. And maybe there's some issues or problems that need to be straightened out. Rahu is a malefic, but it is very expansive. Let's throw Ketu in the 11th. Ketu in the 11th, you love weird, unusual people for friends. You don't like to hang around with conservative, boring people. You want flamboyant, outrageous, what am I trying to say? It's just people that are outcasts in society, basically. You want those people that are so entertaining and unusual and different, maybe artists, or just considered very, very unusual with Ketu in the 11th. And you're also a part of very spiritual groups or organizations. You want to be part of spiritual communities and people like that. Just be very careful not to get involved in any cults with Ketu in the 11th house. And yeah, and if you have an older sibling, they'll be unusual. You'll be disconnected from them. Or with that being the sibling, maybe the sibling is somehow jealous or disconnected from you. Or you are the oldest one with Ketu in the 11th house. And Rahu, let's shift it over. Rahu in the 11th house would mean you are the oldest one. And Rahu in the 11th house also means that you know very powerful and influential people in your life that can definitely help you out. So don't disregard that. That's a gift that you're given in this lifetime. Rahu in the 11th house, you have very strong ambitions and dreams. The 11th house is our desires. And you have very strong desires you must fulfill in this life. Put Ketu in the 5th house. And what does that do? Well, there can be some losses around children, or you have some very, very unique, spiritual, unusual, talented children. See, Ketu can be off the charts, extreme talent and abilities. It's very unusual. Ketu in the 5th house means you can be vastly creative in some very unusual ways and talents. That's a 5th house matter. I wouldn't be investing too heavily in the stock market if I had Ketu in the 5th house, because, you know, Ketu is losses, and that's not where you want to lose your money. So let's go to the last combo, and that is the 6th and the 12th houses. So if you had Rahu in the 6th and Ketu in the 12th, the 6th house deals with our health, and to put that malefic Rahu in the 6th house can actually strengthen your immune system. As a matter of fact, this gives great health, Rahu being in the 6th house. So it doesn't prevent you from getting sick, but when you do get sick, you get well quickly with Rahu being in the 6th house. Actually, I have Rahu in the 6th and Ketu in the 12th. Rahu in the 6th house can give you definitely the desire to want to help people, to be into counseling and healing in many ways. And anyone that has Rahu in the 6th house will become involved in healing in some serious way in your life, health and healing. I used to always, oh my gosh, I was into every new diet out there. I was on a carrot juice fast, a celery juice fast, always doing something to get healthier and stronger. I was obsessed with reading every book I could on herbology, homeopathy, healing of all kinds, emotional, spiritual healing, astrology. That's going to be when Rahu's in the 6th house. Always you will get involved in some type of healing or helping people. Counseling is the 6th house. Put Ketu in the 12th house. This gives incredible psychic ability, actually gives prophetic dreams, which I have had many in a lifetime. Ketu in the 12th house can also deal with, Ketu is sort of the moksha karaka, and the 12th house is the moksha house. So it gives this desire for spiritual truth, to really learn more about spirituality and why we're here, the essence of life, the soul, and returning to the essence of who we are and where we come from. So Ketu being in the 12th house can also cause some disruption with sleep, because the 12th house is sleep. Also, it can cause some hidden enemies. Be aware of that. You know, people that want what you have and don't like you, that kind of thing can happen when you have Ketu in the 12th house. Let's reverse that. Let's put Ketu in the 6th house and Rahu in the 12th house. I have seen where Ketu in the 6th house can cause more health problems, that even though it is a malefic in the 6th house. I've noticed people have problems with their digestive tract, because that's what the 6th house is, our digestion. Even Rahu being in the 6th house will cause problems with digestion. But Ketu being there especially causes some disruption with digestion and can deal with some health issues. I one time had an astrologer tell me that she thought that Ketu in the 6th house dealt with headaches. I haven't found that to be so necessarily true with my clients, but I'll throw that out there in case anybody, with Ketu in the 6th has migraines or something like that. And Ketu in the 6th house, be careful around pets. You can have, sadness and losses with your pets. But another thing is Ketu in the 6th house, you can't keep good employees. Or in the workplace, can you keep it together with others, because it just seems like they change all the time. See, where Ketu's kind of likened to a gypsy in a way. It's always changeable, and that's what it will do in the area of whatever the house rules. There's always something changing or disruptive. And in the 6th house, yes, always be concerned over being highly sensitive with your diet and nutrition. So that's what I see with, and Rahu in the 12th house. Don't forget, 12th house is foreign lands and countries. And Rahu being there in the 12th house, you love foreign travel and you're connected to so many foreign people throughout your life. And yes, you will have people that talk behind your back and are jealous. And you've got to be careful with either one of those, Rahu or Ketu in the 12th house, of thieves and burglaries and people stealing stuff, maybe intellectual information from you as well. So with that, I covered all the 12 houses and Rahu and Ketu being in the 12 houses. So with that, I'd like to close, but please remember, my university is starting a new semester in January. Check it out, University of Vedic Astrology.com. And if you want to learn more about me, or if you want to check out my jewelry, check out my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Thank you.